I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
You're listening to Codependent Content, the podcast where we discuss the TV shows, movies, books, and video games in which we share an unhealthy relationship.
It's a little thing, but when you start to hide little things, they become big things.
You don't say.
My name is Mattias. Join us as we try to unravel the characters, stories, and worlds that we are entangled with. Because just when we think we're done with content, it draws us back in. Okay, episode 4. Welcome back, Morgan.
Hey, thanks.
Today, we are talking about The Last of Us, Season 2, Episode 4, titled Day 1, written by Craig Mazin and directed this week by Kate Herron, which I think was a really well-directed episode. So I'm really excited to talk more about it. Quick thing before we get into our general thoughts on the episode and go into our play-by-play and stuff. Let's first off mention spoilers upcoming. If you haven't seen the episode, you should probably go watch it. Just something I like to remind people because
we're going to talk about everything.
Yeah, we're going to talk about everything. I have played the game. Morgan has not. Mm-hmm. So he's coming from a perspective of someone who hasn't played the game, and I have played the game, but I will try not to spoil anything that is upcoming on this pod.
Yeah, Mattias has been pretty respectful about keeping this stuff under wraps for me and anyone else who hasn't played the game yet.
Respectful and very frustrated sometimes.
Potentially.
How do I talk about this game without spoiling upcoming things? It's so, if you want a spoiler discussion, unfortunately, you have to go to a different podcast. My recommendation is House of R with Joanna Robinson and Mallory Rubin. But other than that, if you're here, you're talking to us, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, this is great.
Me too.
And I hope you're enjoying the episode. One thing that I want to say is we do get a lot of comments, a lot of people on our TikToks that are very frustrated because we should know. We should know if we played the game is what they say. It's like, you should know what happened. You know, they're very angry at us because we will speculate about a scene and talk about a moment that happens as if it's happening, right? In that moment. But they're like, they keep bringing, game knowledge in as ways to...
How dare us watch this television show without playing the video game first? Yeah. How dare we?
I apologize.
For me, on my behalf. He played the game.
You're right. The internet's right. We should have taken their feelings into account.
The audacity.
Listen,
can you just imagine how many HBO subscribers out there probably haven't even picked up a PlayStation or an Xbox before? Disgusting.
Yeah, it's not like that there's a history of video game adaptations that are just, wildly bad. Why would we doubt that? There's absolutely no reason.
Right. No, that's never happened.
Yeah.
Right. Or conversely, if something's good, why even make it into a show? Why not just watch the video game?
We should be just playing the video game straight from this should be a Twitch stream. Yeah. HBO should just get into
instead of doing things like using terrible actors like Pedro Pascal to somehow try and attempt to convey what sub 64-bit graphic did 10 years ago.
Listen,
my God, the
according
audacity.
To the acting is so bad apparently, and the writing is terrible.
Man,
it feels as if it's beat for beat from the game, but it's still terrible.
You can't win. You can't win.
That's the internet for you, and hashtag sarcasm, I guess. I don't.
Hashtag God bless gamers,
guys. I love this show, and I love watching it with you guys and talking about it and posting these clips, and I love more than anything getting hate. It's great. It's so much fun to actually engage with the haters in a good way, you know? But listen, if you like our content, please give us any sort of, I accept criticism.
Yeah.
But I also love, like, if you got something else you want to say, hate or love, send it our way.
Yeah, I mean,
I would love more of the, good engagement, than the people that just apparently hate watch the show. Someone left with me, he's like, this is such a bad show. I'm like, you don't have to watch it. He's like, no, I do, because I played the game. I was like, that's not.
That's the other thing we didn't talk about. If you played the second game, you might not know this. You have to sign a contract committing to watch any potential adaptation TV show that might exist 10 years later.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that are legally required to watch this show, even though they had no intention of doing so because they played the game.
Yeah. No, yeah. I should have known. Should have known.
Hey, man, contracts.
Well, anyway, you can email us, Codependent Content. Wow, I'm slurring my words, I think. Codependentcontent@gmail.com. It's really not that hard. It's the name of the podcast, so you should know that. But email us or just follow us on TikTok. Give us some comments there. Do that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun in the comments. That said, I think we can talk about episode 4.
Yeah, let's do it.
Episode 4, right? Yeah.
It is.
Titled Day 1. I do want to get overall initial thoughts on this, but on the offset, just very starting off, Day 1, titling of that is very interesting to me because it kind of changes everything I thought that this season was going to do and where it was going to go, So my speculation, my thoughts on the season and where it was going to end and how things are going, and especially other things that are going to happen, is wildly getting thrown away.
Yeah.
Just from the title of this episode.
Yeah.
Which is, Day 1 is something that does happen in the game. We show up in Seattle and we follow Ellie and Dina through, I won't say how many, but let's just say several days of Seattle, and there's a title each time, and it does have significance, and I can't wait to talk about what will happen. It's unfortunate that I don't want to speculate too much because they could decide to go one direction. They could decide not to. It's just wild to me that my expectations as someone who played the game is getting shifted, just from the title of the episode.
Sure.
And I can't wait to see where that goes. So very, very interesting.
So this is interesting to me too, because again, as someone who has not played the game, I also loved the Day 1 titling, but to me, it was just okay, Ellie now has her own path.
Yeah.
She's no longer under Joel's wing. She's no longer on this kind of course that's been dictated by other people. Mm-hmm. This is the first time, Day 1, of Ellie living the life, going the path that she is choosing for herself instead of following along with someone else, which is makes total sense. But obviously, if you played the game, maybe there's more to it. I mean,
in the game, it's typically usually is just a little lower third kind of thing. It's weird. It's weird without spoiling. It's really hard to say why it kind of holds a little bit more weight in this context.
Sure.
Without spoiling anything. And it's not a major spoiler. And these are things that you probably already know or people already know. But for me, it's the experience of it is just, if I can retain that, I hate that I'm even talking about it right now.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. I should probably shouldn't have brought any attention to it. But I guess to say that I love that interpretation of it, especially for me, in terms of general thoughts of the episode, I'm much more hype on this episode than I was the last episode.
Sure.
It feels like we're starting more in earnest, that the story that we set out to tell is finally getting going.
Yes.
Right. and that this would be day one of that and
Yes.
Ellie's story, you know, because again, in the game, Joel's death comes pretty quickly and we get to Seattle not too long afterwards, you know,
Yeah.
like it's this whole time in Jackson, as much as episode 3 was interesting to talk about,
Yeah.
it felt a lot about like stretching things out, you know, and here, this is also, as long as we're talking about general thoughts, I really, really love this episode. I love that we're finally starting and we're getting into that. And then we are in day one of Ellie's, as you said, kind of story, or Ellie's revenge, or
Yeah.
Ellie's, you know.
And it also feels like we're getting back in the Last of Us mode.
Yes,
right. We're
very
like,
much,
We're,
yeah.
we're finally in journey mode again.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying there's some problem with civilization, but like I come to this show,
Yeah.
into the game, right, to be like, you're on missions, you're traveling, you're moving through places, through danger and stuff.
Yeah.
And Jackson is this little anomaly, kind of a safe haven, you know, that's very, very much a bubble, its own little anomaly in this otherwise incredibly dangerous and fallen world. So I think the title makes sense for that,
Yeah.
for that in that kind of light too.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is like, since the first trailers were released and we knew that this was going to be split into 2 separate seasons, maybe more, not sure, but like we were for sure on 2.
Yeah.
Ever since then, me and friends who have played the game
Yeah.
have been speculating on like, well, where's the dividing line? Like, where would you do? And for me, it's like, there's a clear dividing line. I didn't think that they were going to do, especially with only like 7 episodes in this first season. That's why I thought, and with the way that the first 3 episodes were going, it felt like things were being stretched out more. I was like, okay, there's no way. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast. There's no way we're only getting 2 seasons. We're going to have to get 3 because we're really giving us a little bit more, which I like. I like that we're taking time in a TV show that we can do that. But here, this is where I'm talking about the speculation is becoming like, oh, this day one title and the episode in general feels a little bit more paced more quickly than it has been. And now we're moving at a faster pace.
Yeah.
And so now my speculation is running wild of like where I thought, and I had a lot of theories about like where the dividing line of the seasons was going to be. Like, how do you tell like 2 or 3 separate arcs, you know? And now it's interesting because I'm like, okay, maybe they will divide it here. Maybe they won't divide it there. And now it's just becoming, and now I'm like, 7 episodes does feel way like short, you know? And so I'm just like wildly in like different things. I'm like, if it's title day 1, it literally takes place over like 1 day for these 2 characters. I think we're on a train that's moving a lot faster than I thought, which is very interesting, very exciting. But also kind of wild to me, depending on where, if they keep up this pace.
Yeah.
You know, so lots of interesting things to talk about. I know I'm being super vague, and so I don't want to do that. So why don't we just actually talk about the episode? What any initial thoughts? Because I already mentioned like how hype I am on this one.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on just the episode in general?
I'm almost there with you.
Yeah.
I like the tone a lot. I feel like I'm finally back in the world of what the show is meant to do. Right. Taking us through incredibly stressful, dangerous situations and moving through this fallen society, and fallen cities. Right. It's cool. The only reason I'm saying I'm almost there is because there's like a scene and a half that I'm like tonally does not work for me and feels out of place, and we'll get there. But it felt incongruous in a way that I was like, it confused me. But yeah, we can talk about it later.
I think I probably know what the scene you're talking about, and there's interesting because there are scenes that feel a little off for me because 1, as a game player, they come out of order, you know?
Yeah.
And then 2, it does feel like a really awkward place where I even had to figure out, like, ask the questions, like, why do these things come here? You know, like, what's the significance? And so I had to, and I did I found for me some things that worked, you know, and I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because it did feel a little weird, but I think it does work there, you know, maybe not for everyone. I'd be curious to see, you know,
Yeah.
but, if we're talking about the same scene in general. But
Yeah, we could be talking about completely different scenes.
probably not. But yeah, cool. It sounds like we're both really hype on this episode, so let's talk about it. Now, I'm currently working on a film set right now. So last night I didn't get to the episode at its normal time. I had to get to it at like midnight. Almost 1 o'clock by the time I got to watch it. I had a friend who texted me. He's like, "Have you seen the episode?" And he wanted my thoughts on essentially the opening scene. So I was like, "Oh no, what is this opening scene? What is going on?"
It's a doozy.
So that was really fun to like get that text message, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do get another cold open, where we're following a group of Fedra soldiers, and we find out Isaac, played by Jeffrey Wright, one of the rare occasions where a character from the game is played by the same actor.
Oh,
So
I had no idea. That's fucking cool.
Yeah. So this happened once before with Marlene, right? It was the same actress who played the character in the game and who played the same exact character. So we do bring actors from the game over, but they're usually like cameos, right? So this is actually an actor playing the same
role.
person, same role, which is great because Jeffrey Wright in The Last of Us Part 2 is more or less kind of like a cameo. We do get to see him, but he's kind of like background, right? We have some like 1 or 2 significant scenes with him, and that's it. So it's great that we're expanding on his role. So I do love that we're getting a little bit more of Isaac and we're getting a little bit more of into his headspace, which is basically like my question to you, Morgan,
Yeah.
after having seen the scene is like, who is Isaac?
I mean, I
don't
know.
What does the scene tell you about Isaac? I think
that he certainly has a strong internal compass for what he thinks right and wrong mean. That he's willing to go to almost any extent to get what he wants or do what he thinks is right. And that we never can think like we can never be sure of like what his next move is.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the gist of my impression of him.
Yeah, that there is a vagueness and a I guess a mystery to Isaac, because when you're like, oh, he'll go to any lengths to get what he wants. What does he want? What we don't actually get kind of in the 2-3 scenes. Maybe we should just talk about Isaac in general and just kind of like get his scenes out of the way too.
Sure.
But his 2 scenes that we get don't really give us a sense of like what he really wants here, what his ultimate goals are, which I find really interesting. But he does, as you said, have this strong he has a strong compass.
I mean, I think it is a moral compass, right? It's just
to him.
It's just personalized, right?
Yeah.
But because like I think what he says, right, is like we meet him in the back of this like SWAT truck, with all these Fedra soldiers, who are like fascists enjoying being fascists,
Which
right?
also, I'm sorry, let's mention it. Sudden Josh Peck. Cameo. That was like the wildest person I did not expect to see.
I mean, I didn't expect to see Jeffrey Wright either, but yes.
No, at first it was like, Josh Peck, it's like it's such an interesting choice to like do that. I want to know how that came about because it does kind of be like, oh, and Jeffrey Wright.
But basically, they are fascist pigs talking about how hilarious it is to beat the shit out of voters, as they call them, and then
voters because we took away their right to vote.
We cut to Jeffrey Wright, who's stern-faced in the corner and explains to the young fascist pigs who are wearing the same uniform as him, why we call them voters, like you're saying. It
is weird that they do call him Sergeant. There's a respect and a knowledge there, but he doesn't look any different from them. I didn't notice any markings on him that like show that he's like respect the chain of command, but there's no outright. The thing I love about this Isaac character is that and I think is something that shows us insight into like who he is as he talks to these people and he gets out of the truck and talks to this group of people or whatever. It feels like he, as much as I think he maybe likes having power and likes being in charge, he doesn't present himself as someone he's like, I'm just one of you. You know, there's no like markings. He's not going around with like shoulder pads of like gold, you know, leaf or like all the medals or whatever. He's not in a ceremony thing. There's no sash that says, you know, there's usually indications, whether it's like pins or something that shows your rank and file, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
In terms of like uniforms or whatever. He's like, nope, I'm just a regular guy, which, you know, who knows what they would even have in this like world, right?
Yeah,
you know, they're
not.
like slow on resources, but even the next scene we get him, he's not dressed. They're not dressed in uniform anymore. You know, the WLF is very hodgepodge. There's very much like he presents himself as like a man of the people almost.
Let's talk about what this man of the people does. So the first scene we meet him, he explains, like we said, to the fascists, why we call them voters, because we took away their rights.
Yeah.
Then he goes and meets with some plainclothes folk who look like they could potentially be WLF, right? Mm-hmm. And he tells all the Fedra guys to stay in the squad, like it's like a SWAT car, kind of like a truck that they're all in the back of. Mm-hmm. Walks up, lady's like, "Are you Isaac?" Mm-hmm. Like, mm-hmm. And then he goes and is like, "Hey, to one soldier, come with me and learn something." Mm-hmm. And then opens a grenade, tosses it into the truck, and locks all the soldiers in there.
I counted 2 grenades.
Was it 2?
I counted 2.
Thank you.
It could have been 3, but I counted 2.
More effective. And murders them all.
Very casually.
Very calmly and casually.
Now, part of that could be because he doesn't want to tip his hand before he does it. You know, the soldiers are just as confused, you know, so stay calm, carry on, basically, for Isaac, the character, but also, again, that it isn't a big deal to him to do this.
Yeah.
You know, that he almost relishes it in a way.
Yeah.
I think we didn't get like a cut to him smiling or anything, but I think he enjoyed that.
He doesn't look sadistic, but I don't know if he literally enjoyed it, but like his disdain for them is already clear from the previous scene, right?
That's what I'm getting. Yeah.
Like we know he has no respect for them. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think. I think that's like my biggest take on who Isaac is as a character, is that like he has no problem with authority.
Sure.
With like rule of law and force being applied to enforce rule of law. It's that blind, you know, like senseless, thoughtless, I think is the word he uses, but like thoughtless enforcement without knowing why these things matter. That's unacceptable for him. Yeah. That's kind of what I get.
Yeah, that's a good call out for sure. My insight into Isaac from this scene specifically, and again, should mention this isn't from the game. You know, this is a new scene, so we're getting some insight into Isaac that we didn't have before, right? Yeah. Which is great. Is in the soldier that he calls out, right? Is that this soldier that Isaac kills a bunch of soldiers that he had made opinions on, right? Yes. But he doesn't kill willy-nilly, you know? Right. Whatever his compass is, and again, for me, moral compass is interesting because his clearly points to a different north than ours does, right? 100%. Is basically what you know. That's why I'm like, is it a moral compass? I'm not sure because it's broken in some way, right? But he does seem to have a clear delineation of like who should die.
Yeah, I mean, like he picks the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed soldier to come with him, right?
The person who has, in my opinion, not had a chance to prove himself one way or another.
Yes.
Like Isaac hasn't made a decision about him because he doesn't know him, right? So he's not going to, I don't think he thinks that he's innocent per se, but he doesn't see him as, he's like, these guys have time and time again proven to me that they are
Right. This one is still impressionable.
Yeah. You know, and I don't like these other people, but you have a chance, right? And that's where at the very end when he says make your choice, that's Isaac to a T. I think that's going to be Isaac's thing throughout the season or what have you throughout the show, is like there's clearly always a choice that he wants people to make, right? Show me who you are.
Yeah.
And I will deal with you accordingly. Is basically what he's saying there, you know? And I think we're going to keep coming back to time and time again. And I think specifically also in the interrogation scene that he has with the Seraphite, or Scarred, as you now learn that the WLF refer to the Seraphites as, because they all have scars. And as a interesting turn of events, he doesn't like when people mock someone for whatever, you know, he didn't like that we called voters someone for taking away their rights, but he is willing to mock these people that have a weird mysticism religion or whatever by calling them scars, you know? So it's really interesting, like how contradictory he is already off the bat, you know? Depending on where his things align, right? Where his thought process is, right? The people need to align with him for some reason, you know? And he gives, I think, the Scarred a choice. He doesn't just torture him. He makes the Scarred lift out his hand so he can do it.
Yeah.
He gives him the choice, you know? It probably results in the same thing, but who knows what's going on in Isaac's head. I do find it interesting that he often asks for or gives that choice to people. Again, show me who you are, kind of thing. That's the insight that I'm getting. Is that reading at all? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that in the second scene, right, where he's torturing this Scarred or Seraphite, it's very clear that he still has some moral code in his mind, right? I think that scene is kind of horrifying, but I loved that scene, even though it's pretty grotesque. But I mean, man, that scene is very, very relevant right now. Just a lot of like the way that like fascistic or extreme military force can be excused or forgiven because you're dealing with animals, right? Because they're less than or something like that. I mean, this is timeless stuff. Very relevant right now. And yeah, I think it was just, it's so powerful, right? When you watch him torture this helpless guy, and then it cuts to the soldiers outside, one of which is
the same soldier from 11 years
from
before.
11 years previous, who is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and clueless how to handle himself. And now there's a new bright-eyed and bushy-tailed soldier who's scared shitless hearing the sounds of Isaac torture this Seraphite. And our previous student, who's now been doing this ostensibly for 11 years, is like, good. It's a fucking animal. It's like, got
what he deserved, kind of thing, you know?
This is how fascism or genocide happens.
Yeah, I mean, the parallels are there. Like, the thing that I think Isaac was against previously has already cycled for him in this 11 years, right? And now he's become the thing that he was fighting against in some way.
It also,
but he has more of a righteousness. Again, there's a reason there, as you would say. Like, it's not just for the sake of doing it, right? You know, because you're in power or whatever. He has reasons, essentially. And I don't know exactly what those reasons are, but there is definitely like, there's obviously the tactical reason, which is like, okay, you attacked us, we attacked you, whatever. Like, it went back and forth. He's like, I'm not going to get into that, right? I just, like, now you're a threat and I'm going to get rid of you, but also the fact that like he just doesn't align, he doesn't like what they believe.
Yeah.
You know, that he's so against that.
Yeah.
You know, especially the idea. What I love about the Scars is that, especially in the game, is that they feel like they were born in this world, right? That they were like, that this is, that they've always been here. You know, which is not true because it's, you know, the pandemic outbreak happened like 25 years ago. They didn't exist before, but it's weird because like obviously they're the young ones that really are impressionable and have become very devout in their religion and in their prophet and all those kinds of things. But there are people that know what the world was like before, right? And that's what's an interesting thing about when we meet the Seraphites and we see more of them in the game and how they live and all those kinds of things, that it just feels, it's like you almost forget that there's a whole other world. But there are definitely people in the Seraphites that don't forget, you know,
right?
Which the Seraphite refers to them as like heretics, you know, which is interesting. So there's a lot of like, what's the word when you're like so fully believing, you know, into the thing, like right? Zealous, yeah. There's like zealots on both sides, right?
Yeah, or absolutists.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Wright doesn't like that zealotry in some ways, but it is interesting. Yeah, the different. I don't even know what I started talking about, but yeah. The different things going on there.
I mean, I love you. You kind of called it out a second ago, but I think the writing is so good when he's just like, you killed children. And then he's like, because you shot our children. And then he's like, because you armed them, right? And it's like, I mean, it's so I mean, you know, I hate to get too topical, but it's so similar to a lot of like the Israel Gaza stuff right now, where it's like, there's this one event and then there's a previous event. It's like, well, you didn't even account for the thing that happened 3 years before that, right? And it's like, Jeffrey Wright's character, right, Isaac's just kind of cuts it off and is like, I'm not going to get into the chicken and the egg thing with you. And it's like, right. They're beyond caring. They're not going to talk this out.
Yeah.
They each just want to exterminate each other.
Yeah. It's just so wild. I mean, it's giving us insight into like, what is, again, as Dina says later on, like what the fuck is going on in Seattle?
Yeah,
you know, like
for real. It's like
what world are they living in? It's very different from the world we were living in Jackson, you know, and even very different from the fight we thought we were having with the Fireflies and the Fedra. You know, this has gone beyond just, you know, quarantine zone politics, you know, or how it's now going into like, this is the new world, you know?
I mean, it looks
that's being built.
Yeah, it looks a lot like religious or cultural persecution.
And yeah, but the thing is, to me, it's like these two factions are fighting for who's going to be in control of the rest of the world going forward, right? These are two ideologies essentially battling it out for control over the people and the minds and hearts of people, you know? And in this, it's poetic that it's happening now, that it has to, because if it doesn't happen early on, like we allow any of these things to happen, then we're gonna, you know, it's gonna,
I mean, this is what happens with nascent society. Like, of course. Yeah. This is, people are like, okay, we're ground zero. How do we all live together?
Yeah.
This is the big, important questions you got to ask when you are starting a society or a city or whatever.
And whereas Jackson doesn't impose their beliefs onto people that come in or whatever, and they allow the commune, the ability of people to like, you know, have differing opinions, you know, and live harmoniously together. This is now we're seeing like that's in itself like a rarity. Yeah. You know, that in this world, it's like, no, you have to, we've kind of seen it before, but I think here more than anything, these two factions that they are vying for control, that they cannot live harmoniously. Yeah. And it's like, no, if we're going to live our way, you have to go, you know? And what's interesting to me is that as the Seraphite puts it, you're going to lose in his own belief, right? And I think he's wrong and he's right there, wrong in that I feel like what we're coming into is Isaac is already losing.
Yeah.
And I think that frustrates him more than anything, right?
Why do you? Well, yes. So why do you think that the Seraphite's wrong?
That it's not that he's going to lose. That Isaac's going to lose.
See.
I think Isaac's already losing.
Understood.
You know?
No, I agree. I think that's like I mean, and it's so hard to argue with that he's just like every day.
Yeah.
One of yours comes over to our side, and never does anyone who listens to us look back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a strong argument.
Yeah.
And I don't get the sense that he's bullshitting.
Yeah. Which to me tells me that Isaac, it's not just about power or ideology. It's about loyalty.
Yeah.
He's losing because he's not, what he thought he was creating is losing out,
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
He is losing, you know, and the more he brings in differing thoughts and differing things. And we know that, he brought in the fireflies, you know, but he has to conform people into his way of thinking, you know? And I think, not to get too far ahead, I know that we're going to see like how the WLF, again, from the scene, like treat scars.
Yeah.
And how they view scars.
I mean, and for the record, right,
Yeah.
we kind of already know
Yeah.
with that just brief throwaway scene
Yeah.
of the Seraphites marching through the woods with the little girl.
Yeah.
And then they said, right, they were trying to get away
Yeah.
from Seattle. Mm-hmm. The whole thing was they were getting distance, safety.
Yeah.
And the WLF mowed them down.
Yeah. And we know that for the Seraphites as well, that they do not take kindly to disloyalty as well. You know, that this is a different group of Seraphites, but if they're not one with the prophet, you know, that they're called heretics, you know, that they probably don't deserve to be there, you know. There's a lot of like, parallels and cycles and weird and things we're going to get into of like how strong these personalities and these factions are in terms of like what their ideologies are and everything. And it's just going to be, and how it creates, a viewpoint of the others, quote unquote, you know, that is going to like come into question, you know, and how easy it is for us to just see someone as like, no, you believe this and do that. Like you are, I can see that you have a scar or whatever. And so I treat you and stereotype you exactly the same way as every other thing, you know? Labels,
man.
Yeah. And how easy it is to be prejudiced and stuff like that. That's, it's going to be really interesting. But again, so interesting that it seems to be something that Isaac doesn't want at the beginning of the episode, but essentially creates, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I'm glad we're getting a little bit more insight into him and like what that journey is going to be.
For sure.
I think it's enough about Isaac. We've talked a little bit about him.
I mean, I just also got to say, I fucking hope we get more.
Yeah, I think so.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, terrifying, but fascinating character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And also, I always want more Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey Wright, his performance it was great in the game. It's great here.
Yeah.
Let's have more. Bring it on. Yeah. Before we get to past the cold open, something we forgot to mention last week, and I don't know if eagle-eyed viewers probably already noticed this. I'm sure you've seen I was going to make a TikTok about it, but the title sequence has changed.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, for full disclosure, Mattias pointed this out to me. I didn't notice.
Yeah.
And I don't skip the title sequence.
Yeah.
I just maybe I was like pulling something up on my phone, you know, as I was beginning to watch, but I don't skip the title sequence, and I didn't notice this.
Yeah, last week, I typically watch the title sequences, and we know based on Game of Thrones or something, that sometimes these things change.
Yeah, you get cute
Westworld
little,
does it too, I think, a little bit.
They're hovering over, you know, King's Landing. We must be going back for something.
Yeah, so
you know?
It's something that you kind of been trained to do, you know, with HBO shows.
Yeah.
But when I watched the episode last week, I was coming off of with my roommates, and they had watched the first two, and they watched the third one right after. So they had kind of skipped the recap and skipped the opening credits because they're already here, you know. And I just joined them, right? So I just completely missed it. So what we're talking about is that opening credits typically they go through the whole the spores, kind of giving you like the history of like how it works, and it's all just visuals, you know, and that kind of stuff. And it usually ends with like two kind of mushroom spores like popping up out of the ground, and it's two figures that, you know, are reminiscent of Joel and Ellie, you know, from The Last of Us. And ever since episode 2, we've only gotten one person, the one that represents Ellie, and Joel is no longer there. A great little thing, and it's a little sad, you know.
It's like kind of an Easter egg almost.
Yeah, reminiscent of like where, you know, where we are as a show. It's constantly that person is always going to be missing, you know, for the rest of the season and for who knows how long. So yeah. Fun little Easter egg to talk about and go through. I missed, and if you didn't notice it, I hope you notice it now.
Yeah, totally. Great call out. Yeah.
So moving on past the title episode, we are with Dina and Ellie, and they're going through Seattle. They are on Shimmer, just kind of. They're looking through for medications or whatever, you know, typical thing you do in the game, you know, searching every drawer, every cupboard, grabbing the pill bottles,
find the good stuff.
Because the resources are scarce, you know. I found it funny that, you know, they get on Shimmer after having looked at this for the medications, and, you know, Dina is like smiling. She's like, okay, now let's go kill people. And I'm like, Dina,
it's so cavalier.
Don't.
I wrote a note about this too. She's just like, all right, time to go kill people. And I'm like, just like, what is going on?
Can we not smile, Dina, when we
know,
talk about
like, it's like you're
people?
not a sociopath. You're very sensitive. You puke every time you see dead bodies. We'll get to that later. Yeah. but I'm like, it's just kind of like, what? I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why are we happy about this? I've said this before too. I'm like,
it is again. She's like on this adventure that I think she heard so much about with Ellie and Joel before, and like what it's like. She's never been outside the walls of Jackson. She's like, this is what we do, you know. It's like, and Ellie is kind of rightfully, at least, I think Ellie is usually joyful to also kill people, but she doesn't. She kind of like puts that to bed a little bit, you know, in terms of like giving her Dina a look, which is good. Good on Ellie for being like, hey, let's not.
Yeah, we're going to kill people. We don't need to celebrate it. It's a video game for our audience, not for us.
Yeah. They find a tank. They clearly see that Federal soldiers have been fighting each other before. You know, they're going to lay the land. There's no one around, you know. Dina's a little jumpy, you know, not great for me. You know, it's like, Dina, like, you're so smart and I trust you, but then like you jump in just out in the open, like ready to shoot some things, you know. But, you know, that's, again, her mindset, like once things happen, it's weird how like things work for her, you know?
I mean, so I should just come out and say that this is the next couple scenes here are like some of the stuff that I had the most trouble with in the episode.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, I'm willing to get over it.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't make sense to me that we're like so concerned with the slamming of the tank door. And then a minute and a half later, we walk into an old music store and start playing a fucking drum set.
It is
right? That we're so worried about noise and creeping and silence, but then we have time to be fair,
only after they realized no one was around.
We have a 2.5 minute acoustic guitar song. I'm just like, are we trying to be quiet, or do we not give a shit?
Do you want to talk about rainbows real quick before we get to the?
Sure. This is another thing that I had a tough time with this sequence.
Please tell me. Yeah.
So they come across a part of town that looks like it might have been like a predominantly queer neighborhood, or maybe there's just a couple businesses that were, you know, showing some pride.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's like a multicolored flag, right? Or like a heart with every color of the rainbow on it. And both the girls are like, huh, what's that?
Yeah.
Must like rainbows. And in the same fucking sentence, Ellie knows all about the Apollo 11 crash. I'm like, what the fuck is going on, guys?
Because here's the thing. I don't want to
help me understand.
Here the pride there's this section of the game, most of what we're seeing are like the little things that you do when you're walking through, and you get like little pieces of dialogue, right?
Yeah.
They could happen or they might not happen depending on where you go, right? And so it's like that little piece of dialogue exists, you know, the pride flag thing, not being sure like what they are and whatever, which is great. So it's like, okay, it's in the game. I accepted it there. The reason I don't accept it here is because as I kept bringing it, I'm kind of justified in like the many times I've been bringing up the anachronistic things.
Totally.
Like I was like, okay, so we know about Vietnam, we know about therapy, we know about like what do these guys know and don't know?
In the same,
and it's like, and
again,
you don't know what. Now here's
in the
thing.
same sentence, they're talking about Apollo 11, which is well before like the pride flag, you know, became an established thing, but certainly not that far away. Like, come on.
For Ellie, there would be books that make sense for the like space stuff because she does love space, right? And we know that. There's like little hints of that in the game and stuff like that. And so it's not. And there's a section of it in the first game. They seeded this thing in the first game where she knows something of certain astronauts. You know. In the first season, I should mention, not the game, but it is. So I'm willing to forgive the space stuff because it is integral to her character that she would have found books and maybe looked it up or whatever. But it is like extra. So parts of it are a little bit extra. Like that's a little bit more than I was like, how do you know about this, but you don't know about like what the flags are?
I mean, like, I'm just saying, if you're framing this as an argument about her character identity, are you trying to tell me that her sexuality isn't also something that's deeply integral to who she is as a person? If she knew the slur that Seth used against her a couple episodes ago, but she somehow doesn't know the rainbow flag is a symbol of gay pride.
I will say it just does. There are certain points where it does feel like the knowledge of her space exploration only goes so far, you know, probably to the 60s where they would be in history books and things like that, right? That you find. Whereas like gay rights movement and pride flags and all that kind of stuff is more our modern day, right? And might not have made it into, say, you know, a bunch of like history books, you know? Possibly.
Stonewall's like 1970 though, right?
There's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm forgiving it and hating on it at the same time. I think it's more of like the meta nature of some of these quips and some of these moments of like, okay, if you're going to give us this moment from the game, like I have to understand like where they're getting their knowledge, right? Is it coming from the writers who just want to throw in like a little joke, you know? Or is it coming from like something built out of the world? Because there's certain things where I could like understand that she might know more about something than another thing, you know? Right. She didn't read up on gayness that much, sure, whatever, but she read up a lot on the NASA stuff because she's really, really interested in like space and astronauts and wants to go to the moon. She loves flying, you know, and that kind of stuff. But it's the other little things that like, again, you've already thrown in this like idea that like some character like served in Vietnam. Like, I don't know what these characters know about Vietnam. They're not as interested in Vietnam as they are as in space. Like, what do they know about therapy? I was like, there's been one therapist in the town. They don't know what to think about therapy. It's like, it comes from like our modern day knowledge of it, not from the character's knowledge of it, you know?
Sure.
And that's where I'm like, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
I agree. I mean, I obviously agree.
We both agree pride is good.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad it's there.
I do love the joke. It's like, maybe they were optimists. I love that. I love that they don't have the context and the texture of like our modern day view on it. You know,
it's a beautiful moment of innocence and like absolutely like a fun wink. Like, whatever. Yeah. I'm just like you're saying, there are so many other examples of them getting historical references. And this one is so central to at least one of their identities. I'm like, and we find out by the end of the episode, both of their identities, that I'm like, how? Right? Again, the problem, like you're saying, is not with pride. Yeah. The problem is with how do our characters not know? That's all. I'm willing to forgive it too. Again,
it is that specific piece of dialogue is in the game if you happen to like run into that street or whatever. There's like a small little moment, which is great. And I think it's just the additional things that we've gotten that are like, okay, we need to be more consistent here.
And look, seriously, if you're a queer historian listening to this or watching this and you're like, oh, actually, there's this really specific reason that this culturally wouldn't have made it out there, whatever, get in the comments and let me know, because I'm totally willing to learn about this. But it just seems hard for me to wrap my mind around.
I'm trying to think of like the 80s, because rainbows to me and flag culture is to me relatively new. Like, I don't think it's,
I guess.
Was it around in the 80s and the 60s or?
Yeah.
Not really. Pride wasn't that too, because rainbows were rainbows in the free love movement era, but it wasn't like to represent a community. Was
explicitly queer. Yeah.
I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
I'm unfortunately not queer, and I did not do my own history. So, you know, maybe they were optimists. Who knows?
Lovely. Yeah.
Let's talk about the take on me moment. Which, forewarn you, straight from the game. So be careful what you say here.
We've learned a million times over that I don't give a shit what happened in the game, and I'm going to say what I think. Come after me. I'll play the game after the show.
What are your thoughts on take on me, this guitar store?
I mean, I'm trying not to be a hater right now because like I like Dina and Ellie, and I like both individually and as a couple. Like I'm rooting for them. Yeah, it just tonally it feels so strange to me. Mm-hmm. Like not only does it seem like Dina is like watching someone play guitar and sing for the first time, but like. The whole urgency and secrecy of the plan and everything gets totally abandoned to do an open mic acoustic cover of a song for 2.5 minutes. And I'm just like, what is happening right now? Mm-hmm. To me, it just so feels like not the world of The Last of Us at all. Yeah. I'm glad they got it. Yeah. I understand that we need to establish that Ellie and Dina have like feelings for each other, and that like, you know, their whole life isn't just like camping and being on the mission. But I'm like, it felt late, if that. And again, a minute and a half ago, we were terrified of the tank door closing, and now we have time to play an acoustic song on guitar. Yeah. And Sega's just like, I don't know. It's shot beautifully. My God, like the open hole with all the plants growing around it and the light pouring in on Ellie. It looks great, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a cool cover too. I like that, like, you know, she takes the chorus down an octave. In a week or two part, instead of going way up high like the original song. It's cool. It just feels so out of place to me. What do you think of it?
Again, this is straight from the game. This is one of the most beautiful moments in the game. And when it comes, maybe is around the same time as, you know, it does happen when they first arrive kind of like into Seattle. But there's a huge section of the game where no one else is around, and you're literally like in like this kind of open world section. They tried it with Uncharted 4, I believe, and then they brought it back here between the first game and the second game of The Last of Us to do this like little open world thing where like you can kind of go anywhere in this section and go to any building, and it's you just searching for resources and you know, discovering little bits and pieces of the story and whatever. And you're not running into you might run into a few infected that are like trapped in houses or whatever, but you know that there's like no immediate danger of anything else. Cause at this point you don't know even like how much of the WLF exists or where they are. And you just assume that they're just like a group of 5 people, you know? They also did not meet the Seraphites on the way in. Right. So it kind of makes sense that right now the city is relatively like empty, you know. That said, because it is open world, you could skip this entirely, which is wild. When I first encountered this scene in the game, which is a beautiful moment, you know, having like explored like every other nook and cranny and know what's around and what isn't around, you know, at this point, like I'm not, you know, scared or whatever, you know, so there's no like tension, you know, that you would have where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, where you were making noise and this thing. Well, here in the game, it's a little bit more clear that like, no one's around. It's not gonna, no one's going to hear this. Right. But also the fact that like this happened, I'm like, how is this optional? This is such a great, beautiful moment in the game. And completely, hi, do you want to be on the podcast?
Oh, hi, Lana.
We love cats on the podcast. I don't know if y'all can hear the cat and can see it. You might see a tail or something. It's fine. We've had cats before. Just wonder, are you going to join or not? Okay.
She's going to do her thing.
Sounds good. But yeah, the fact that this is optional, that you could completely miss this,
It seems important.
is wild to me, like in the game, you know? And I was so surprised that like I potentially could have missed this altogether. And I think which makes it even more precious
Yeah.
for you as a player, because like, oh, I got to see this.
Yeah, this
and
thing
have
that,
this
that if I
thing.
didn't walk into this room, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
See, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think for the show, it's important too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we want to see Ellie and Dita's connection and want to root for them as a couple.
Yeah.
It's just like the moment it comes at, it feels, yeah.
I think it's a thing that, you know, we're kind of rushing a little bit more. The pace is upped, you know? So we're trying to get these like iconic moments, but also we have a lot of story to tell now.
Yeah, totally.
And we have a deadline that we have to meet, essentially, you know?
Totally.
So there is that. But in terms of like its importance and like why it's here, first of all, as you said, we need to talk about the production design of Seattle in general. Like the theater that they find themselves in, the subway kind of track thing that we get later. Like these feel like they were models straight from the game.
And they're massive sets.
And these guys have managed, the production design is like on point.
Totally.
You know, they did such a good job of recreating this like music store.
Yes.
It's maybe not room for room in terms of the music store is not, but like that hole in the wall and like how like that and shining onto Ellie or whatever. There's significance. Typically, I missed this last week. Other people that again they're smarter than me.
Yeah.
Go listen to another podcast.
Or don't.
Have mentioned this. You know that when Ellie is sniffing Joel's jacket, you know, there's a light coming from the window, right? And there's essentially like this kind of like motif or symbolism or whatever now that we're getting of like when that light's coming through something that is essentially like Joel.
Well, this is also the Firefly like motto, right?
Right. Yeah, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like in the game that's not as present, whereas here it's like even more prevalent, you know, that light coming in being very much Joel, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that like this is the first time we've actually understood that like he did teach her guitar, you know, that she is actually so good at the guitar that she knows a cover, not just a song, but like a cover of a song. And she knows how to like play an acoustic version of it. Cause I don't know if Joel taught her that. He didn't like give her the exact tabs or whatever. Like I think maybe she had to listen to the song and figure it out. So she's actually pretty good at this, you know? And to me, there's like, that's anytime she plays guitar, that to me is like her remembering and her connection with Joel, right? To me, there is, when we got earlier in the season, Abby and her dreams and how she keeps revenge alive, so to speak, this is Ellie's way of doing that.
And that's interesting because I agree. Part of me was just like, this is ostensibly the first time she's picked up a guitar since Joel died.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought it might be more emotionally difficult for her or something. Like I was kind of like, oh man, this feels like I was almost nervous for her to play. I was kind of like, is this gonna get super emotional?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like this is also like a mechanic in the game, because when you first pick up a guitar, you actually have like a mechanic of like use your joystick and something to like play certain chords. You could actually play full songs if you wanted to, if you know how to play guitar in a certain way, right? So like we visit the guitar a lot, and we're going to visit the guitar a lot. This is not just like a one-off thing, I'll say.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, like I think the idea that it's not so hard for her to do it, right? I think it's still just as emotional because of that connection that she has with Joel. But the fact that it is so easy, just shows like that she cherishes and wants that memory, right?
Yeah.
That it's not something that this is how she wants to remember Joel, right? That it becomes something that's like, this is my moment to like be with him, so to speak,
Sure.
and to remember like what he meant to me and remember him in a different way because we remember how they left things off and whatever, and she needs this now, right? And that to me is like why it's like so easy to do in this moment, is because this is the first time she's really gotten a chance to kind of connect with Joel, so to speak, that she hasn't had since she left Jackson, since 3 months ago or whatever,
That's nice.
Yeah. And I love the fact that we get a little glimpse of like that she's actually really good at this. And it's these like little moments. And I think Dina, they say it on the podcast, the official podcast, and what Dina's doing here, that she's essentially falling in love with Ellie, that this is like a serenading kind of little thing, we see the moment where she's like fully committed to Ellie at this moment, right?
Yeah.
And I think she's seeing a part of Ellie that like Ellie doesn't show people, that this is a very rare thing for her to do this, that normally she'd be hesitant, but she respects so much that what Joel gave her, that she is able to share it, right, with someone that she actually cares so much about as well. And she's also showing her care for Dina for being able to like play right then, And I think that we get this glimpse of like who Ellie could be if she was not so racked with revenge, that she is actually really good at this, that she could be a loving, caring, creative person, and it's the kind of thing where you're like, Ellie, hold on to this. I want Ellie to just be that you could just do this, But no, she's going to put the guitar down and leave it and forget about it. So she doesn't take it with her, that's a life that she cannot have, I guess, according to her. And it feels very hard and frustrating for us as viewers, because we're actually seeing like you have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, more on that later, right? Mm-hmm. But like the only thing forcing her to go avenge Joel is herself. The only thing.
Yeah. And again, I think the guitar things are her way of keeping it alive, so to speak, because if she doesn't do it, just like the same with Abby with the dreams, then she's not going to do this revenge, that she has to continually remind herself of like what she lost and what was taken away from her, and this is like what that guitar moment is, so it's like, it's bittersweet because it's great because this is what you want to see of Ellie. This is how we want to view Ellie,
sure.
We want our characters to be happy, but she's going to choose to put that guitar down, and she's going to use that as motivation for why she needs to do what she's going to do, probably, So that's why, that to me is the significance of the scene coming up and happening, or at least what I wrote down, what I was getting from that. Because I really enjoyed it. And again, that's not even like game knowledge. That's only what I'm getting from like how the show's presenting it,
sure.
I don't always want to feel like I know what's going on because of the game. That's definitely not happening. Like I'm learning about these things too. I'm viewing things differently from when they were before, But yeah, beautiful moment. I wrote down that it feels to me like Joel, when she plays, this is kind of Joel reaching out, wanting her to be different. But I don't know. I don't know if other people are getting that or not, but that's what I wrote down. That's what I'm getting from it.
Sure.
Skipping the scars thing, because we already talked about that. So they leave, and then on the cover of Night, they go to TV station where they saw a big WLF on the satellite,
Right.
To figure out what's going on, And inside, they discovered this gruesome scene.
Super nasty.
Yeah. A bunch of WLF soldiers strung up on the grid, the light grid, with their disemboweled intestines,
Just
hanging out, fun stuff because it's actually real stunt people up there, as we found out from the behind the scenes episode. HBO loves to hang them some people.
Sure.
I'm reminded. I feel like they used dummies for this, but I'm reminded of the House of the Dragon, where they had the a bunch of people like hanging last season on the walls of the whatever, and I didn't think they used a lot of dummies, but there's some real people there too.
I mean, yes. While we're talking about references, I got big Silence of the Lambs vibes. Just there's that scene. It's only one body, but where like it's like one of the last things that like Lecter does. There's that guy strung up, kind of like almost looks like an angel with all his intestines hanging out or whatever.
And unfortunately, I've buried the lead on this one quite a bit, but that's why it was so hard to talk about the Seraphites before and like to really give insight of like who they are or whatever, because I didn't want to spoil too much. But I kind of buried the lead. But this is the first moment that we see something for them in the game, and then here for Ellie and Dina, that something else is going on here.
Right.
One, that none of these bodies are, first of all, any of the people that they're looking for.
Yeah.
So how many WLF are there, right? And then two, that who did this? It's the Seraphites. It's the people we ran into in the forest.
Yeah, they're not angels.
They're not angels. And for all the scenes that we've seen, that you've seen before, like would lead you to believe that like the Scars are probably good. They're just like,
they're presented almost as almost as pacifists.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't really have guns.
Yeah.
They just have hammers and arrows.
Yeah.
And the torture scene, he's so submissive and whatnot. And like now we see like, no, they get down and dirty.
Yeah. Did that change your perspective of the Seraphites when you saw that, or when
I mean, like, yeah, but not really.
Yeah.
To be
because
totally,
I think I already like alluded to the fact that they are.
even if you didn't, I was kind of like, I'm sure there's something that makes this more complicated. I don't think that the WLF is just straight like fucking.
In The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Complicated.
Yeah. I was just like waiting to learn. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So now we're seeing what the Seraphites really are capable of, and maybe why Isaac doesn't like them so much, And also it's like, can we really fault some of the prejudice, calling them animals and that kind of thing, when this is what they do?
Yeah. Leave people's intestines in their body.
I mean, this is killing a whole bunch of people is like one thing, but like leaving them for you to see.
So you mean it's how they did it? No, but it is, right? It's like you can have ideological warfare, and war is war and it's gross, but it's like, it looks like we're moving beyond just the point of homicide, right? This is torture. This is grotesque. This is, I mean, disembowelment. My God, it's, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
Human bodies have dignity. Like,
this is where, again, I'm just a big stickler on metaphors. I don't want to just say things. It's like a moral compass. I don't know what the compass is pointing to anymore for anyone. Like it's like, if a compass always points north, I was like, I don't know that any of these are using a compass anymore.
Yeah.
There is definitely different views on how this world works that are not the way that we view things,
I mean, I think this is why the title of the show is so great, right? It's
Day
because of the show.
Oh, The Last
why
of
it's
Us.
called The Last of Us. It's just because like, I think it starts like being like we're losing the people we love around us, but like the more time you spend in it, you're also like, no, we're losing our humanity. Like those last shreds of things that societally kept us together and allowed us to function and flourish. It's like, it only takes just a little push and we lose like our humanity.
It's very much like, it's always kind of been a kind of a cheeky joke for me to say that, oh, the real monsters of The Last of Us are the humans, you know? But that is like a very like on the nose, a very big thing that they have tried to show, like on this show and in the game. It's like humanity is almost worse more often than not than the infected, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the reason I love the remainder of the scene in the TV station is because it is so reminiscent to me of, I believe it was episode 2 of the first season when we encounter the clickers in the museum.
Oh, yeah.
Except
okay.
this time it's not infected, it's people.
It is.
You know? This felt like not, when I say this, I'm not saying it's like a 1-for-1 shot-for-shot like remake. This felt so reminiscent of the game. I felt like I was playing the game.
It feels like a video game.
It was, yeah. It
really
the
does.
tension and the sneaking around and like
the angles
way
even they use.
Yeah, the soldiers and how they work. They almost like NPC like. You're like you're hearing them but not seeing them, you know, and trying to figure out like where are they? It all felt straight from the game, and I was so excited. This is where again the director did so good, Kate, to capture this feeling of all these scenes that she's done, down to like the Take on Me, to like here, like she's just capturing exactly how it felt.
Yeah.
You know? And that's really hard to present in a show. And I thought she did such a great job here.
I agree. It really just it was like, it felt like a video game, but in the best way.
Yeah.
Like in the excitement, the tension, the way that you're looking at the room for exits and or safe places and paying hyper attention to noise and stuff. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah. And then, and to me, again, big callback to, I think for people who haven't played the game, if you remember a very similar scene in the first season, it's with the clickers where we're hiding from 2 of them and we're trying to figure out like how they're moving or working, you know, and they are very much like scary monsters. And here it's like, these are just humans, but it feels shot and done in almost a very similar manner to almost like show you is like, hey, like infected are not going to be a problem for you, you know, that like the real monsters are here in the room with us, and they're carrying guns and flashlights. Yeah. You know, that to me is like the parallel that's going on here. Ellie and Dina do take out 2 of them relatively quickly, you know,
impressively so.
Yeah. After having seen Dina, I'm kind of proud of Dina, the fact that she is able to kind of do the thing. No hesitation, no questions asked. Yeah. But also like, because I was worried about how she would be like pulling a trigger.
Sure.
But she kind of just did it. To save Ellie, yes. Yeah. You know?
I mean, the stakes, I think, dictate her acting swiftly. And, you know, it's like you watch the person that's like, you know, your security, maybe that you love, right?
Yeah.
It's like them or him.
Yeah. And Ellie kind of does her thing, which is a very interesting thing from the second game, is like when you're playing as Ellie, you always have that knife, right? Yeah. It's not always an option. You have to make a shank in the video game as Joel, but like with Ellie, you always have that knife, right? Yeah. And she uses it usually on clickers, and here she's using it for, I guess, not just infected, and here she's using it on a human. The same way she would, and she has used it. This is the first time I think we've seen her really kind of do that, you know? To hold someone down in front of you, and at hostage, you know, almost, and so that you don't get shot, and then to like take care of them, whatever, is also very reminiscent of the second game. You know, I don't know. It's weird because this is the kind of thing where, what is it? Cognitive dissonance happens in the game a lot, which is like this idea that like you're doing something. It's hard. It's a whole thesis has been written on it, and it's still hard for me to like wrap my head around, right? But the idea that like, you know, we go through games like Uncharted and The Last of Us, and you're doing a lot of killing of people and monsters. And, you know, when it's monsters, it's like, okay, right? But when it's like regular people, it's like we're perpetuating like violent tendencies But because it's a game mechanic, we kind of accept these kind of things. And here, that's exactly what that is. It's like the idea that like Ellie and Dina just kind of do it like they've been doing this forever, you know, and then just move on. There's no moral quandary about it or whatever, which I'm kind of pulling a little bit from the podcast of like what they talked about. The idea that like the first time Ellie shot someone, it was traumatic for her in the first season. And here she's able to do that without hesitation. Yeah. And that's showing you like one, like how, where Ellie's headspace is, and also like how little she regards like these people, you know, that, and a small little mechanic that they added into the game was the more dialogue from the NPCs, that like when you do become that person that's like kind of just having to like sneak around and kill someone or do whatever, when they find a body, you hear someone yell out, it's like, they got Sarah, Jason, you know, or whatever, right? Like, like you feel like that there was friendship there and like actual humanity there. Like it's putting a name and a face and like a story to that human that you just unceremoniously like killed, you know? And I would not be surprised that this kind of thing is going to happen more in the show, you know, that we're going to feel like the inhumanity of Ellie a little bit more. Yeah. In how she does this, and how she dispatches these people, these WLF that she doesn't care about in her pursuit for vengeance, you know? Which is interesting because it is such a throwaway moment.
But it's like, I agree. It's like, how many Abbeys is Ellie creating? Getting to Abby.
Yeah.
Right.
How many wolves will do, you know? Does one wolf matter? Or is it the whole pack, you know, for her? Does she have to get rid of? Right?
I don't know.
They don't have time to think about it, though, because they're still running away. And they go into this, I guess we'll call it a subway, you know, train station kind of area.
Some underground transit.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And this is a moment I was like really looking forward to. It is a moment that happens in the game, but not quite in this way. And they use it as like a moment to have like a huge set piece. But yeah, those flares kind of coming out of nowhere, painting the whole area like red, you know, such like good imagery, you know?
Yeah, it's awesome.
They talked about like having filmed this like over like months. Or
really?
Well, Craig made it sound like it was like we were in there for like 9 years. I'm like, okay, so they took him like some time, you know? I would say like something like this would probably take a few weeks to like a month, maybe, depending on, because there's a lot of extras, a lot of moving parts, you know, a lot of shots and rigging that you have to do, a lot of stunts, you know. Yeah. They really milk the scene, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, and it all starts with like the flares, which are first like, okay, that's one thing, you know. Now it's going to be harder for us to sneak past these guys. Like, what do we do, right? And then those flares, we see the little tendrils, and oh, wait a second, there's a scream in the distance, and there's another scream, and Dina's doing the thing. A great callback to the first episode where she's counting, just like they did when they were outside the market. And now she's like, I've run out of space on my hand.
Yeah, this is where we're supposed to go get more people.
Yeah, we're supposed to turn back and report. You know, so now it's like which in the game, kind of fun because like, oh great, the infected are coming. I don't have to deal with the WLF because I can just run around this. But oh wait, there's also infected that I have to get through, you know? Oh my God, what a great scene.
Fun scene.
Going through the subway thing. They built that thing so well, you know? I'm like, this is why they couldn't do anything like this in season 1. Like they didn't, but now HBO's like, here's money.
Yeah, totally.
And I love it. I love that they save this kind of stuff for like season 2. It's so cool. And they do eventually get through. I was wondering how things were going to like play out, because it does play out a little bit differently, you know, in the game, and we'll get to that. But so there were stakes there, you know, too. Like I was like really scared about like how things were going to like happen, right? And or when they were going to happen, you know. But what happens is they get to a revolving door situation, and Dina gets trapped, and there's one infected that's about to come through, and Ellie, without hesitation, sticks her arms out, takes the bite.
Yeah, she does.
In my notes, I wrote that I don't think Ellie's even thinking about her immunity there. There was no question. It wasn't about like, I'm immune, so I'll take it. It was just, I'm saving.
Oh, cool.
If she was immune or not, I'm saving Dina. I think it's just great that she's immune.
Yeah.
A good benefit, but to me, it's like, it was more of the instinct to save her.
Anyone but her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so powerful there,
Sure.
In the quickness and how she does that,
And dude, I honestly was caught up on the fact that fucking subway turnstile was almost the end of them. How relatable. Those things never fucking work. I was just like, oh, this would be fucking this. I mean, wow, what hilarious shit would it be if they could get through all this and there was a subway turnstile that did them in.
Hey, listen, guys, don't jump the turnstile.
Don't
use
jump
the card.
The turnstile.
Get your card. Respect public transit. It
was kind of wild though. I was like, oh, how relatable. They probably never had to use these things. They're learning the hard way. They're learning the hard way. Fucking turnstiles suck, man.
If only it was Vietnam.
But yeah, what a noble act.
Yeah, and every moment after this, I think, solidifies or justifies Isabella Merced's casting.
Yeah.
Because everything she does from that moment on is like some of the most tremendous acting I've seen on anyone.
Yeah, it's really good.
To get to that moment, they get to the theater, there's a little bit of condensing that we're doing. They do find the theater. Theater's a good home of operations for the game, that you keep going back to. They really seek it out at some point, like during the rain or whatever, to get some shelter or whatever. I didn't realize it was going to be like so close to this subway thing.
Yeah.
It feels like if you're going to choose shelter, maybe not so close to the place where you just like left, but
strong
that's
agree.
one thing, but we're condensing some things to just get us to a point, and then also having this moment with Dina and Ellie where has to convince her, like, don't shoot me, I'm immune, which has got to be a very hard debate to have, because like, Dina is going to, if it was anyone else, probably
be dead already.
If it was Joel, he almost did. I mean, the first time,
Jesus, it was
when they were like, she's infected, so yeah, like it's a hard decision for me to make, because I don't know if I would have believed Ellie,
I mean, like, I will say that writing wise, they don't give her a ton.
Yeah.
Like she just says like, I'm immune. I've been bit before, but I'm like, I would have given more examples and been like, I got these tattoos because, like,
I expected her to lift up her shirt.
Exactly.
Be like, look.
And show, right?
It's
like, and whatever, they get to the tattoos, the morning after, but it was just kind of like, oh God, I don't know if this is going to do it.
Yeah. I love, I don't know. I personally, I don't know when it's written. I would feel like, if you're going to give me this moment as an actor, I would love to like improv whatever it is I'm going to say. If like someone's death is imminent or has happened, I would feel like I would like to know what my reaction would be. So I don't know who chose that,
totally.
But the choice to be like, why did you have to do that? Is so like heartbreaking, like, because she knows she's lost Ellie in her head, right? She was just getting to the point where like, I love this person. I'm like, I want to like spend the rest of my life with them. A little fast for these girls, but it's a different world. I'm a little willing to. It's a game, it's a show, but that the way that it's presented and performed, and her just desperation there for like an answer and what's going on, and like she knows she's losing Ellie like right before her eyes. I don't know, that phrasing of it, like, why did you have to do that, is just so heartbreaking to me.
I agree. I totally agree.
I wrote this down later because I didn't think about it. I find it interesting that the two scenes that we get with Isabella, in her view of Ellie and with this like love story kind of thing, all happen almost without dialogue, right? That this mirrors the guitar scene almost the same, you know, in terms of like, instead of her like coming closer slowly without saying a word, it's her like moving away without saying a word, you know, and there's this like distance being put between them, you know, and that she's just completely silent and her view of Ellie is changing before our eyes, you know, and the first time it's that she's falling in love, and here she's like wrestling with the fact that she's losing this person. It's crazy that we get both, you know? And again, the range on Isabella Merced, that she is able to do all this without basically very little dialogue.
She's amazing.
You know?
It's truly amazing.
Yeah. So I'm curious of like when they decided if that was like potentially intentional for them to mirror the scenes in some way for one episode, if it was written that way, you know, with that in mind. But I do love that it does kind of mirror, you know, the relationship in some way, you know. Any thoughts on that before we get to like the before she goes to sleep, they go to sleep kind of thing? Just the this initial moment of them like kind of confronting, like, am I going to shoot you or am I not going to shoot you? Or did I kind of like say it all?
I mean, there's stuff that I wonder about that's like not necessarily tied to just before they go to sleep. It's kind of part of the whole sequence of the scene. Yeah. But like, yes, I mean, I think that it's also curious to me that like, so Ellie ends up showing her scarring and burns and stuff.
Here's what I'll say, because I want to get to that. And the reason why I asked and why I was splitting it up is because this is, you might be interested to know that like the way that this happens in the game, which is really interesting, this moment of tension and this, because I kind of we knew this was coming, right? That there was going to be like a confrontation of like, you're immune, what's going on, and that Dina might have to do something or whatever.
Sure.
In the game, the way it happens is they are going through similar to the underground stuff, and they run into spores, so they put on their gas masks. And in the tussle and in the escape, Dina's gas mask breaks, so Ellie takes hers off and gives it to Dina without hesitation. And so Dina knows immediately like what that means, because we have spores, which the spores are how the infection gets to you. Which I know you don't watch the trailers.
Correct, I do not.
So I'm sorry for spoiling this for you, but spores are coming.
Here we fucking go.
Spores are coming. We're getting spores in the game. I'm sorry. Then the show, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Cool. They showed that and alluded to the fact that spores are about to be a thing, which is weird that they didn't just do it here then, but fine, whatever. I love that we're possibly going to get some spores. It's been a long time coming, and I've been like, I don't know how I feel about this whole tendril thing, but I always was wondering like how they're going to do this difference, you know? Yeah. And so here, the difference here is that she saves her from a bite as opposed to like the spores thing, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, she does convince her to not shoot her. They sit on the couch and they do this kind of like standoff. Like where she sleeps and heals up, and Dina just watches.
Yep.
I'm gonna say something just for fans of this podcast. If you've been listening for however long that from my talk on season 1, but there's a very famous TikTok that I released that got a lot of controversy, guys, and it's one about trigger discipline. And I think I'm sometimes smart or clever, but I noticed that the very first time Joel meets Ellie, he doesn't have his finger on the trigger, even though he's pointing the gun at Ellie. He has no intention to shoot her, which was my interpretation of that Joel or the actor would be smart enough to convey that, because if you don't, because that's trigger discipline is important to me as a gun person or has owned guns or used guns in the military or whatever. It's like you don't put your finger on the trigger unless you intend to shoot someone. So that tells me like you have no intention there, right? And here I did notice again that there was a finger on the trigger with Dina that she did have intentions to possibly shoot Ellie, that there is a parallel there, that she is so scared that she would have to keep that finger there because otherwise why would she have that intention? So I'm just bringing back this section of the podcast, trigger discipline talk corner with Mattias.
Sure.
Because I think it's like those small little moments that show like is like where you're at, anyway, that this is just a small little choice that can show like what intentions really are happening,
Sure.
that I was worried a little bit about Ellie there because like that finger is there and I'm like, that can be pulled at any time. If you get like a little nervous or you get a little, when she woke up and she's like kind of like,
a little,
like, and it's a little bit like an infected.
Was that twitchy?
Yeah. It was like, I was like, no, wait. So yeah, I don't know. I figured I might as well just point that out so people can hate me on the internet some more.
Sure.
Because I talked about trigger discipline anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, they do. She finds out that Ellie might be telling the truth. And reveals to Ellie the thing that's been happening, that's been kind of plaguing her for like a little bit, that she is pregnant.
Learning a lot about these characters very quickly.
Yeah. When this happened, my initial instinct was like, now this is the moment that we're going to choose, this is why. And then I had to think about it and I was like, okay, no, it kind of makes sense. She's been spending like an hour, 2, just sitting there, like watching this person, thinking that she's going to think she's going to lose her and that she might have already lost her. She has no indication that Ellie is going to wake up. She's thinking, I'm going to have to shoot this person again,
right?
Representative of that finger, and where it's at to me. Right. And yeah, if you're about to lose someone and you didn't get to tell them like everything, it would just come out. That you would just blurt out whatever I've been holding back or keeping. It's like, it doesn't matter anymore. Because I don't know how much time I'm going to have with you,
Well, that's interesting too, because one of the things that like she does, I mean, Dina does kind of say everything.
Yeah.
One thing that Ellie does not talk about is what exactly brought her to Jackson and what she was doing with Joel. And I thought that would be an easy, like, okay, I need you to understand, right? Because that would connect so many dots for me if I were Dina, being like, because I was immune, I was taking this facility. That's how I ended up halfway across the country, or across the entire country. Something happened that I may or may not understand between Joel and the Fireflies while I was unconscious. And I woke up in a truck.
Yeah.
Right. And that's also the source of a lot of my frustration, maybe with Joel or whatever. Right. But she doesn't say anything about that part of her past.
Yeah. I wonder what they know of Joel and Ellie's relationship at all. Has Ellie told Dina part of the story, like little snippets without the immunity portion of it? I
don't know.
Like,
I mean,
what has she told Dina?
It would be hard to tell a ton about it, right? It's like, what tests would they want to do on you? Why would the Fireflies need you, Ellie?
I don't think. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is like she definitely has not gotten into that kind of thing, right? I don't think.
Yeah.
I think maybe she, like, whatever their relationship is, like, she's had a crush on Dina, but they haven't had like a relationship, right? It's really interesting because by this,
no, but they are about to have a kid together.
Oh, we're moving a little fast there, Ellie.
Somewhere across the country, lesbians are making jokes about bringing a U-Haul to the first date. I'm sure they are, right?
If they
correct me if I'm wrong,
if
but
they run into a Subaru in the middle of of Seattle,
it's over. This is the joke that lesbians have told me about dating, is that things move fast, and my God, no exceptions here.
I'm going to say this as respectfully as I can. Lesbians, get in the comments. Tell us how you feel about this relationship moving.
I mean, this is date number 2, and they're having a kid.
It is. This is where, again, some things are getting condensed. We've talked about this potential sex scene.
Yeah.
This came early on before Joel's death, when Dina and Ellie it's like just the day after the dance, right? So usually by this point in the game, they've actually, by the time they get to Seattle and do anything, they've kind of already had a relationship. They have had time. So it's weird. It is interesting to kind of put it here. It's like we're fast tracking. We need these characters to be in a certain state because we haven't done this, but we also are like having them fall in love for the first time here and reveal everything, you know?
Yeah.
So it is interesting, like difference, you know, in terms of like where the characters are, you know, and where they normally would be, you know, by this point.
Sure.
So in one way, it might not feel as fast, but here it definitely feels like like a little quick.
I mean,
you know?
and look, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously like each other.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of options.
Yeah.
And things move very fast in a post-apocalyptic world.
And they're trauma bonding. You
Right.
know?
Like all of it. I'm not saying it. It's just kind of funny because this stereotype exists in a normal world.
I do love that, like, it is Jessie, right?
Yes.
She doesn't even say anything.
But
She's just like,
I'm so glad that line was there, though. Yeah. Love it.
like, okay, hold on a second.
It also is like a nice justification too, right? Because Dina talks a little bit more about her sexuality in general, and like who she always has thought she has been, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's beautiful. Like, it's kind of nice hearing that, you know, my mom wasn't willing to accept this part of me, but here I am. But also, it's like I think it makes Jesse make a lot more sense, right? Because it's not. It sounds like, you know, he knew too, and it's not just that, like,
He doesn't know.
What do you mean?
You said it sounds like he knew?
Yes.
He doesn't know. As far as I know, he doesn't know that she's pregnant.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I mean that Dina is bisexual.
Oh, gotcha.
And it seems that, like, from the context clues of, like, this stuff, it's not that she's unhappy with him, right? It's that there's other things she needs to explore. That he knows it's not about me.
Yeah.
I can't offer, right? So again, like I've said about Jessie, no ego. Like, because it's like, you know, she's looking for a different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Something that no man can offer.
Yeah.
And I think that's like makes like Jesse make a lot more sense too, about how he can be so kind of like almost disconnected from it, or
You know what I love about the scene, and I don't know if this is a product of the world that they live in, you know, that this isn't an option for them kind of thing, you know, but that there is never any talk of like, will we or won't we, you know, they all fully accept it, you know, that Jesse's not a bad guy to have a kid with.
Totally.
Right. That there's no like hesitation there from either of them. Like, I don't even know if like, sure. They're like, she's like, I don't know if he wants, you know, a kid or whatever, but like it doesn't matter because they both are fine with it. You know, she's like, she knows she's going to have this kid, you know. I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah.
You know, that like, I guess typically we always put it like pregnancy as something in our media as like, oh no, it's like do I want this? Is it bad? Is it good? You know, kind of thing or whatever. That, the potential there is almost hopeful for them.
Yeah.
I like that. I really just like that. I like that there's no animosity towards anyone. You know, Ellie doesn't have animosity towards Jesse for this or whatever. Like, there's, you know, it's just like, yeah, no, we're going to have a kid. That's great. You know? And I love that there is some sort of like future. Again, Dina mentions it, the future that I was planning, I thought I lost that. And now it's like now they can do that together kind of thing, that there is a future there, potentially with them three too, not that they're like going to be like a poly throuple kind of thing, but the fact that like
but they seem to want.
It feels like that this generation is like, it's going to be it's new life, new beginning, and that these three are good people to raise this kid,
and that they want Jesse to be around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jesse's a good person and they recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I wrote down, I don't know what I was going to say about it, but in this scene, Ellie mentions, when you hide little things, they become big things.
Yeah.
Just such a powerful line, just a really good thing that feels like a Craig-ism, Craig Mazin, who writes the shows, I don't know why I wrote this. No, you weren't hiding it, Ellie. Did Dina say that or something?
Because Ellie says something like, "Well, I had a crush on you, but I thought I was hiding it really well."
Yeah, no, you weren't.
Dina's like, "No, you weren't." Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, but I do love that moment. I don't know how much we're gonna get of this. That like, hey, when you hide little things, they become big things. That sounds like something that is gonna come back in some way, as like some sort of like theme, something that we should take away. I just I love the line.
Yeah.
Did you get anything from it that maybe I'm missing or I forgot? I completely forgot. I was tired when I wrote my notes.
Maybe could be. I mean, like I would say, if anything, if I had to guess about some sort of other things, it's like, I mean, Ellie's obviously very not good at talking about how she feels.
Yeah.
But also like, I would assume there's going to be a point pretty soon where she's going to have an opportunity to get to Abby or to get close to her or something like that. And it's kind of weird navigating honesty in scenarios like that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot probably there. It's not just, she's saying, I think it could be reminiscent of like what was Joel hiding, because he was hiding something small in the relative grand scheme of things, but it became big.
Yeah.
It became a chasm for them.
Totally.
That it's true that like when we're not honest and when we hold back from our loved ones, that these little things become much bigger, I
also just remembered there was something I really wanted to talk about as a gorgeous, not gorgeous, but really, really effective shot. When Ellie wakes up, right, and needs to confirm with Dina, see, I haven't been turned. The shot, it's Ellie in the chair, and you don't see Dina's face. Yeah. It's just a flashlight pointing directly at her. It's so dehumanizing. It's so effective. It just feels like, some anonymous force just hosing you down with a flashlight like that. I was like, oh, man, if she shoots her right now, this is going to feel horrible.
Yeah, it's as if Dina had to disconnect herself from Ellie.
Yep.
At all. Like,
I mean, she doesn't
altogether.
She doesn't let her see her face. Like, she can't see her face at all.
Yeah.
Right? Ellie's just blinded by flashlight.
Yeah.
Very effective.
Yeah. And, I mean, we talked about the light earlier, and it's like when you're in the darkness, seek out the light, and Ellie, I think, wants to cross that divide there so badly, even though she can't see,
She's looking right at the light.
The light is almost like goes against that, know?
It's like almost heartbreaking, right? Because she's like trying to connect with Dina, and all you can see is flashlight. It's very,
it becomes a barrier,
Very effective.
It's like the one time you don't want to seek out the light, you want the light to be shut off so that you can actually see each other, know? I don't know. There's a metaphor there. Who knows?
I think they're probably as a couple.
Yeah, great moment. But yeah, they get to, they hear on the radio something's going on with Nora. And
Nora, a name.
Yeah, and they recognize that, and Dina knows how to use a map. They're like, let's get to high ground. They look and they find out where they are and where they need to go and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now we're pulled right back into revenge plot.
Yes, indeed.
Why are we here? And Ellie says, you don't have to go. Now she cares so
Yeah,
much.
we have a conversation now.
Oh, we should have mentioned also like the fact that like, of course we should have known she was pregnant because of all the throwing up that she was doing.
Right.
Now, I obviously knew, this is not a new thing. So I just kept my mouth shut,
I did not know.
This is definitely something that, with my ex in particular, and then also probably most women, I'm curious if you're out there, if you guys would have noticed this, but it's definitely something I've missed in other shows where like someone throws up or does something and I like my thought process doesn't go to immediately that they're pregnant, but there's like little things, something that someone says where like my partner would be like, she's pregnant. I'm like, what, where, how do you know? It's like this women intuition kind of thing, So it was one of those things where like, I'm glad I knew and I could have called it out, but I'm the fact that you didn't. I'm like, I probably would have been the same boat as you. I probably would not have thought like the fact that it's just a smell that she can't handle dead bodies.
It does happen every time we have a pool of dead bodies. It's like pretty believable.
Yeah. I think the idea is that like, it is so bad of a smell for her that obviously her senses are working overtime, and Ellie doesn't. It's interesting because like it's supposed to be presented as like, is she just not good around bodies? But it is just a pregnancy, is what it comes down to, but yeah, we forgot to mention, but now the pregnancy, now that we know, and now that it's out there, Ellie is very much more protective of Dina.
Yeah. I mean, we finally have a conversation about whether or not this mission makes sense for Dina.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Which was like just one step away from, does this mission still make sense for Ellie also? Like you have a lot to live for now. Right. I mean, she says even, right, I can't believe I'm going to be a dad, which is like so sweet. And of course, Ellie thinks of herself as the dad, that's awesome.
Because she and Joel are the same. We've talked,
but like truly, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, if that's the case, at what point is Ellie going to realize that the thing that she has the most responsibility to in the world is not this 60-some-year-old dead man, but the person and the soon-to-be person standing right next to her?
Yeah.
I mean, it's how much are we going to risk just to avenge Joel's death, right? It's compelling. If I were Ellie, I'd turn around. I'd be like, I got a lot to live for now. And I'm not saying that Ellie's not thinking about it. I think that weight, though, is going to grow a lot more on her.
Yeah. This is where I'm a little bit disappointed that we spent so much time in Jackson and didn't get straight to it, because when we're in Ellie's head, like, we want it just as bad as she does.
Yeah.
With what happened and how it happened and get ripped out from under us. Like, this is where we're at, It feels like at this point, like, Ellie, you've had a lot of time to think and let it dissipate, How do you keep this alive? How do you keep this alive in the audience and in yourself or whatever? I think she does. And again, I think that's where like the guitar scene and other moments, like there's like, no matter what, as soon as she hears names, if she doesn't see Abby's face, if she doesn't ever get to that moment, she's just going to keep on going.
Yeah.
She's going to keep on going. She's going to find a way to keep reminding herself,
Sure.
But to me, the best part about this scene, the final moment, is Ellie giving her the choice, giving Dina the choice, saying like, you can stay here. She's going to go. It's not that like, hey, like, let's go back. It's like, I'm going to go on revenge and I'm going to do a revenge and you can stay here, And Dina has the choice, right? And she makes the choice, which is, hey, look, bookend to our opening scene, make your choice, right? And which I think is good, which a theme of the episode might become a constant theme anytime we deal with Isaac or whatever.
Yeah.
But choices are made all throughout this this episode, and especially involving hands. Dina reaches out her hand in the same way the Scarred kind of like reaches out his hand to make that choice, and here it's Ellie choosing to save Dina, and Dina choosing to stay with Ellie, And then they say they're going to do it like together, you know? So that's the differences in ideologies there, you know? It's like one choice is about being together, especially after what they went through. It's like they don't want to, if they are going to lose each other, they don't want to separate. And the other person creates rifts, you know, with choices, you know, dissension and division and that kind of thing. Anyway, so that's the kind of parallel or the theme that I felt like I was feeling in that like last scene is like choice. The choice mattered, you know, that she made the choice and it's gonna
Totally.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see what choices they make next week on The Last of Us.
Yes, it will.
How you feeling? Any
Good.
other thoughts? Any closing thoughts about the episode or whatever?
You know, I'm saying this out loud for the audience, but we talked a little bit about the season as a whole before we started recording.
Yeah.
And you were telling me there's going to be 7 episodes.
7 episodes. Yeah. This is episode 4. So like we have 2 more.
Yeah.
3 more. Sorry.
3 more. Right.
Yeah.
And just to me, seems like we got a lot of ground to cover, or seems like something's drastically going to change soon.
It depends on because we're obviously adapting a game and we're splitting it up, and we know we're splitting it up. So we always knew that there was going to be at least half a story. You know, at some point I thought it was going to be a third of the story. There's a lot of ground to cover, and unfortunately, there is also speculation, and we know from trailers or whatever. So this isn't like much of a spoiler that there's going to be a flashback episode.
Yeah.
You know, that we're going to see something kind of like the Frank and Bill episode where like it's not involving our characters that we're following.
Giving us some color for, you know.
And I think that's going to be a full episode. And I think we're thinking it's probably going to be episode 6, which really only leaves us 2 episodes of like the actual story left.
Which is nuts to me. It just seems like there's so much to get through. Not even knowing where they're going. I'm just like,
yeah. It is very wild to me. I'm a little bit, at first I was like, I'm not sure how I feel because we're stretching this out, but maybe that's good. I like that we're getting more story and stuff like that. And now we hit a point where it's like the pace is being upped. All the speculation that I had going into the season about like where it's going to end and what's going to happen has been thrown out the window. I think we talked about that at the beginning of the podcast. And here I thought I knew what episode, I have an idea of like how episode 5, 6, and 7 are going to be. And which means that if you've been watching the trailers, if you're a person that likes to consume marketing or whatever, we have seen literally not a single frame from episode 7.
Yeah.
Which tells me a lot. And again, this, if they end it the way they do, which I will definitely reveal, you know, like how that goes, right? If they do that, it will feel a little bit truncated, a little bit short to get all this only in 7 episodes, you know?
Yeah.
And it also leads me to believe that we're literally gonna maybe only get 2 seasons, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why do we spend so much time in like with the first 3 episodes with Jackson and stuff, you know? It's kind of like a little bit frustrating to me to do that to us, but you know, I haven't seen the episodes yet, so I can only speculate so much, and I don't want to, you know.
If you haven't played the game, get in the comments. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your theories. If you played the game, I'm glad you know how it ends.
Here's the thing. I will say there's still plenty of story to tell and plenty of room for them to go, and that this can still be like 3 whole seasons if they wanted it to be.
Okay.
I like that we're getting more. I do feel like depending on where they end it, it might feel like a massive like cutoff, you know? Which I didn't think was going to happen.
You mean like in a cliffhanger way?
Yeah, in a cliffhanger way, and also like feel like a little bit short. Like last season was only 9 episodes out of the 10, and we were all probably saying like, why didn't we just get 10? Just give us 10, you know?
Yeah.
Like we had we could have used more. And I feel like even more so. Whereas like I trusted them with 7 episodes because of how they were like stretching things out.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, no, don't give us less. Like.
Yeah.
Why didn't just give us 10 or give us 9 again? You know, like is what I'm going to, you know, so it's less cliffhanger and more of like, should we have had more, you know? But I also think the way they do it, if they're doing it the way I think they're going to do it, was also kind of smart based on the game, and a really bold decision, and will be also in a cliffhanger way, kind of like very, very interesting, you know? And wild. I was again talking to my friend who's played the game. We've been trying to speculate between me and them, like where do we think things are going to end or change or whatever. And this very much feels like if they do what we think they're going to do now, the where my thought process was completely different going into the season. It's like, I'm like, that's bold. That's not something you do in television. Like the way that they tell the stories, like we didn't think works, the fact that we might not see Abby until, for the rest of the season was interesting because you feel like you would want to see more of this like character they're going after, that they already gave us a reveal of things that, in the game worked. Like they didn't reveal this. This is, how the game works, right? Like you don't really see Abby much in the game. You don't get to understand her motivations or whatever. But here, I thought they were giving us more of that.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, like just even that as a parallel, or as like a reveal of like how the differences that I'm saying is like I thought they were giving us one way, and I was like, okay, it makes sense because they're doing a show, they're not doing a game. And now I'm going back to like, oh, they're gonna do probably the game, which is going to be wild to see if that works for people who haven't played.
Yeah.
Because it's a bold decision making in the game that we have already been like, how does this translate? And that's more, not story spoilers. It's just like, it's weird. The mediums are different, So now I'm like, that's going to be interesting. So I will definitely reveal and get more into that if that happens, because again, I don't know, so I don't want to say anything now, because they might not do that. They might, for all I know, next week's episode is going to go back to like what I thought was happening. I was like, okay, but if they're going the way they're going now, could be interesting, could be truncated, could be whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, I love this episode. I am looking forward to the rest of the season. I am glad that we are moving at a faster pace. That said, because like we are getting story beats that I know are more in line with like the story that I know of The Last of Us,
Sure.
And I'm excited for everyone here and who hasn't played the game to like experience that.
Yeah.
Because it goes into some wild stuff as we've been seeing. It's just getting a little bit crazier every episode. And I love that. So I would love this episode. Can't wait for the rest of the season. I hope you guys feel the same way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad we could talk about it. Thank you again so much for joining me, Morgan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I'll see you and you guys next week for The Last of Us. Thank you for listening to Codependent Content. For updates, you can follow us on social media. And if you ever want to see a video version of this podcast, feel free to check us out on YouTube or Spotify. If you have any questions or simply want to tell us about something we missed, you can email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com. Or just leave a comment on TikTok and we'll get back to you. Links to all our accounts, where to contact us, or other ways to support will be in the description or show notes. We're glad you're here and working through your traumas with us. Remember, when you're lost in the darkness, search for the light. Live long and prosper, and may the force be with you. Until the next session, cowabunga, dudes.